Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Midnight Thoughts podcast. It's been a bad couple weeks since the last time I recorded one of these. Oh boy, has it! I had a giant seizure. I almost died. I wound up in a medically induced coma for over 40 hours. I bled so much into my own throat. I gave myself pneumonia, which is metal as hell. It's been a pretty traumatic couple weeks for me, guys. I know this last episode went out, and if you listen to the show, you probably follow me on social media. You know what's going on, but I haven't really had a forum to talk about this publicly yet. I've done one open mic night, and, comedy is one thing, but just telling it straight like it is to the people's another. And boy, has it been an intense couple days. The fact of the matter is, I really don't know what to say other than thank you to the dozens of people who kept me alive, to my family who have put up with just the massive garbage person I've been the past few days, to the medical professionals who use their technical expertise along with their human compassion to, not just keep me alive, but in bearable spirits while I was in the hospital. To my dozens of friends who've, sent me encouragement and given me rides in the past few days since I've been out of the hospital. I'm gonna be eternally grateful. This could just be a rambling mess. I honestly don't know, but I am on, painkillers and weed on top of that, so I can get off the painkillers, right? It's been a really rough week for me, but I'm happy to be here, doing my normal routine, at least for the next couple weeks, which is finishing this journey I've been on with you guys for 17 weeks now. We are on to the second half of our second to last story in the Midnight Thoughts short story collection. That's despite everything else that's happened to me in the past few weeks. I'm really happy this came out on time last week. I'm really glad that I had recorded a week ahead. I'm glad that, I had time to recover, and now I can read this without slurring my words too much more than usual. I'm just, of all the things that have worked out terribly over the past few weeks, it means something to me that this is still coming out on time. I know that's silly. I know it's small. I know there aren't that many of you out there listening to this, but it does kind of matter to me. I'm gonna take that small victory in my artistic life, and I'm gonna put it in my pocket, and I'm gonna carry that around with me, and it's gonna make me feel just a tiny bit good about myself in the next few weeks. That this ball didn't get dropped. Even when I was on death's doorstep, the Midnight Thoughts podcast still came out on time. All right, I know that's fucking stupid, but whatever. It makes me happy, so we're just gonna get into this. If you haven't listened to last week's episode, this is the one time I'll say you should probably do that. You should probably go listen to the first half of Disarmed, and then you should come back and listen to this episode. This episode is the second half of the longest story in the book. It's about a world where there was a zombie outbreak during one of the world wars, and now there's just some social backlash from that. This is just a society where something weird happened in our history, and it's an exploration of that. So we're gonna pick up where we left off with Disarmed. Six. I'm freezing. Opening my eyes, I find out why. I'm in a freezer. It's dark. The only source of light is a small rectangular window in the door. I'm propped up against a huge bag of something, rice or beans. Alejandro Castillo is sitting next to me, dead. Something sharp and gleaming sticking out of his chest. I moan. My head felt trapped in a vice, and about to explode all at once. It was enough I almost forgot the ache in my left arm. Almost. Al, why does everybody keep bashing me in the head? I asked the corpse. I'm a nice guy. I always say please and thank you. Help old lady cross the street. Unsurprisingly, Al had no words of comfort for me. Well, to hell with you then. I mentally brace myself and stand, leaning against a shelf while the world spins. It takes nearly a minute for my head to clear. I begin to take stock of my situation. My gun is gone, of course, and so is my wallet and keys. Thankfully, they left my jacket, but probably just so I wouldn't die in here before Vasquez gave them permission to kill me. Probably shouldn't have snaked his date, Al, I say. Maybe I should work on my manners. I inspect the door. No handle on the inside. I look out the little window and take in the dirtiest kitchen I've ever seen in my life. The walls are caked in grease. Cockroaches roam freely over dishes crusted with goo that might once have been edible. Something simmers in a giant pot on an industrial stove. Probably still in the pool hall. Looks like dinner's almost ready, Al. Standing on my tiptoes and looking down through the bottom of the window, I make out the edge of a handle. I turn back to the freezer's interior and squint in the dim light, taking in my surroundings. Not counting myself or Al, the freezer is pretty bare. Just the bags we'd been resting against and a few cans of indiscriminate contents. The gears in my throbbing head began to churn out a desperate, stupid plan. I fight another bout of vertigo as I crouch down next to Al's body. Checking his pockets, I find nothing and sigh. I'm really sorry about this, pal, I say, and yank the gleaming metal from his chest. A scalpel. Interesting. I tear Al's shirt open and inspect the wound. It's small and clean, right between the ribs. It isn't leaking either, probably on account of the temperature. Good news, Al. I know who killed you. Very slowly I rise to my feet, and the room doesn't seem to be spinning quite so much this time. I pull a sturdy-looking can without a label off the shelf and step back to the door, holding it in my good right hand, doing my best to grip the scalpel in my broken left. I peek out the window to make sure nobody has entered the kitchen, then take a deep breath and close my eyes for a moment. There is a good chance I'll be dead in the next minute or two. It's been real, Al, I say. You were a sick puppy, but I'm sorry you went out this way. Then I smash the can into the little window. Once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th it shatters. The vertigo is back, but I'm out of time, so I shove my right hand through the shattered window and grab the door handle. And then I hear laughter. Going somewhere, Calvin? Through the window I see Vasquez smiling like the sun. Smug bastard. Oh, just late for church, Eduardo, I say. I've got lots of confessing to do. Caught and almost certainly headed to execution by a gangster boot. I figured there's no reason to go meekly into that good night, so I unlatch the door and step out, holding the scalpel in front of me. I notice idly that blood is dripping down my right arm, pooling on the floor. I must have cut it pretty badly on the glass, but I don't feel it. Two of the goons who'd grabbed me stand behind Vasquez. None of them had a weapon drawn, though with 2 wounded arms and at least 1 concussion, they could probably kill me with a well-aimed slap to the face. "You're bleeding on my floor, Calvin." "I thought the color might brighten the place up," I say, and my bravado cracks. "I don't suppose you're very happy to see me at the moment." "Not really, no." I raise the scalpel between us. Vasquez eyes it thoughtfully for a moment, and then his face splits into that rakish smile once more. "Let's get you cleaned up, Briggs," he says. "If I kill you, you can't find the son of a whore who killed Alejandro." 7. Half an hour later, I'm bandaged, splinted, and getting into a cab. Turns out Vasquez was a medic back in the war. He gave me some pills for my head, but I knew they'd make me groggy, so I pocketed them for later. It's sometime after 2 a.m. Uptown, I tell the driver, and settle into the back seat for a think. Every fiber of my being wanted to go downtown, to my tiny apartment, and fall into my tiny bed and sleep for a solid 12 hours. But Vasquez had let me know in no uncertain terms that if I didn't find out the person who'd killed his man, he'd do it himself, and then he'd come after me. Plus, something in me, the intuition that had once made me a pretty good detective, told me this case would go cold the second I took my foot off the gas. So as the cab rolls through the empty, late-night streets, I take stock of what I know. I'd found Castillo, but seeing as he's dead, he most likely wasn't the thief. The scalpel in the chest pointed a bright red arrow at Margot Sullivan's doctor. What was his name? Winston? Winifred? Winstead. Any doctor for the dead won't be listed in the phone book. I could keep chasing down underworld contacts until he shakes loose. But if things keep going the way they have tonight, I'd wind up with more hospital bills than the job was worth. I could just ask Margot, but she doesn't have a phone, and something tells me the doorman in her building doesn't allow strange gentlemen callers after midnight. That leaves Mary, the person who recommended my services to Margot Sullivan in the first place, the last person in the world I wanted to see. 8. From the outside, Mary's place looks a good deal nicer than mine. Thick oak door in a quiet neighborhood next to a park. If she works for a senator, she probably has her life together. Good for her. It's 3 a.m., but I knock anyway. Mary got me into this mess. She can damn well help me get to the bottom of it. It takes a few minutes, but she answers the door. She's wearing a bathrobe and doesn't seem the slightest bit surprised to see me. She's beautiful. "Hello, Cal." "Hello, Mary. Sorry it's late." She shrugs and steps aside so I can come in. The door opens into her living room. She turns on a lamp and sits in a plush reading chair. The house is warm, with comfortable furniture, books on every surface, and a well-used brick fireplace flanked by sofas. A photo of Sarah giggling, holding a sleeping kitten, hangs over the mantel. Our house had looked much the same. "Looks like you've been put through the ringer," Mary says. "Sit down before you fall down." I do, on one of the sofas, and a nearly undeniable wave of weariness sweeps over me. "How's the case going?" Mary's large eyes are full of concern, though for me or Margot Sullivan, I can't say. "Pretty much the usual." I raise my splinted left arm. "Thanks for the work, I suppose. Seemed kind of cruel, but it's been a slow couple months. You were the only person I knew who would help, who wouldn't turn her in or go to the papers, and I thought maybe a case like this would help you. I mean, it's been 5 years. If I stay on the couch, I'll pass out for sure." So I get up and begin perusing one of her many bookshelves. She has a bit of everything, from classics to trashy romance. I even spot a couple pulp detective novels in Grimace. Turning back to her, I say, "Alejandro Castillo's dead. Scalpel to the chest. I don't know if he had anything to do with the taking of that Sullivan girl's arm, but I'm pretty sure the doctor of hers did him in." "Dr. Winstead?" Mary seemed surprised. I only met him a handful of times, but he always seemed eager, positive. Well, maybe he hummed a little tune while sawing Margot's arm off. But most folks don't harvest the infected for parts. So you need to know where he is. I nod, and the world spins. I close my eyes and it stops. When I open them again, Mary is next to me, concern in her eyes. I haven't seen you roughed up this bad in a long time. Her hand is on my arm. It's been a shit night. Let me make you up a bed. This case will still be there in the morning. I'm tempted to say, no, I need to see this through tonight. Why? Because of Sarah. Mary cups my face in her hands and kisses me lightly on the lips for the first time in years. We let what happened to our daughter destroy us. I'm not going to let it destroy you. Come to bed. She takes me by the hand and leads me to the bedroom. 9. It's 7 a.m. and my head's still pounding, but with 3 hours of sleep and some strong black coffee, at least I'm not falling down exhausted anymore. The cool autumn sun is just beginning to peek over the horizon when my taxi pulls up behind the stark gray facade of a nondescript warehouse. This is where Mary said Dr. Winstead received his checks. I pay the fare and take a stroll around the building. Windows are too high to see through, and there are only a couple doors, one facing the street, one off an alley across from a nearly identical gray warehouse. The streets are empty. Nobody comes to this part of town without a reason, and rarely a reputable one. I jimmy the lock on the alley door, draw my .38, and step into the darkness. It's only dark for a moment. Fluorescent bulbs buzz to life, and I blink in the cool light. While the exterior of the warehouse was unassuming, nearly identical to the building surrounding it, I'd never seen anything quite like the inside. Walls, clinical white tiles. Same with the floor. There's a hum coming from a massive refrigerator unit against one wall. Half a dozen metal slabs sit in front of me near the middle of the room. Bodies lay on 3 of them. I'm in a morgue. I shouldn't be surprised, but I am. I have just enough time to register something large moving on my left before I go flying to the right. I land hard on my right shoulder and skid a few feet on the tile. Pain sears up my arm as the cuts I received trying to break out of the damn freezer open back up. I roll onto my back just in time to see something huge and vaguely human-shaped bearing down on me. It has tentacles. No, arms. Too many arms for a person. My gun isn't in my hand anymore. It grabs fistfuls of my jacket and picks me up as easily as I would a child. Limbs sprouting from the middle of its torso clutch at my clothing. They don't seem to have much strength, but they pinch and dig into my flesh all the same, making me cry out. I force myself to level my gaze at the monstrosity's head and meet the cloudy eyes of the dead. It roars and I smell fetid meat. It's bald and naked and bigger than any man I've ever seen. I know I'm about to die. Careful now, Clarence, a calm voice says from behind the creature. We wouldn't want to damage our new subject. The monstrosity grunts and sets me down, but keeps a firm hold on the lapels of my jacket. Its extra hands, there are at least half a dozen, release me. From its cloudy eyes and black and broken teeth, I reckon it must have been infected during one of the first outbreaks. It should not be able to follow commands. It should be rampaging through the streets, cracking every skull it sees and drinking the insides. I weigh trying to fight free from its grip, but those arms, the ones sprouting out the sides like normal, are thicker than my legs. It would likely just bash me into a pulp. A man of about 30 in a lab coat steps around the monstrosity and gives me a practiced smile. He's holding my .38 casually at his side. I apologize for your rough treatment, he says. We don't get many visitors, and Clarence is very protective of our privacy here. You're Winstead, I ask, knowing the answer. I am. Thought you'd be older. This time the doctor's smile is genuine and sardonic. Something I wish I were. If I'd been practicing medicine before the last outbreak, my research would have progressed much more efficiently. Still, there's no use dwelling on what we cannot change. For instance, you caught us at a bit of a bad time. We were in the middle of packing, and now we'll have to delay our plans to deal with you. You were hired by Miss Sullivan, I take it. Professional ethics dictate I play dumb, but considering I'm looking literal death in the face, I decide at least a little honesty might buy me some time. You got me, I say. Hired me last night, and I found you already. The police are already on their way, so I'd get out of here if I were you. A bit of truth followed by a whole lot of bullshit. It's the best I can do at the moment. I pray Winston buys it. He does not. We both know Senator Sullivan would never allow police interference, he says. Clarence, strap him to the table, please. The gargantuan picks me back up and shoves me under an arm like a bag of groceries. As he plods to the row of examination tables, my feet drag against the ground, but just barely. Seriously, the cops are on their way. I only came in first to try to get rid of evidence connecting you to the senator. I feel like a toddler trying to get out of a belting, but I have to do something. I don't know what this psychopath has planned for me, but I know the second I'm tied to that table, I'll never walk out of here. I ram my left elbow into the creature's gut, just below the writhing mass of limbs, and despite a slight give, it doesn't slow a bit. But the shock of impact reverberates down my broken arm, making me gasp. Clarence's pain receptors withered a long time ago, the doctor said conversationally. You could cut him open from hip to sternum, and he'd mostly carry on as if nothing had happened. Well, at least until he tripped over his intestines. You're a sick bastard, Doc, I say. I'm a scientist, he says, as Clarence slams me onto a cold metal slab. I make another swipe at it, my fist connected to its jaw. Again, the lug simply ignores my attack except to grab my wrist in one hand and force it down onto the cool metal. Winston continues as if nothing had happened at all. After the last outbreak, the government decided research into the virus was simply too dangerous and the short-sighted fools. Well, that tends to happen after 2 clinics become ground zero for larger outbreaks, I grunt. Then, before Winston responds, I pull my knee into my chest and kick out through the forest of limbs to connect with Clarence's face. The infected giant's head snaps back for a fraction of a second, and its grip loosens. I manage to slip my left wrist free from its meaty paw and launch myself towards the doctor. He lifts my .38 and fires. I don't register if I'm hit or not as my shoulder collides with his midsection. We hit the tile and the gun goes spinning off. I scramble for it, taking special care to put a boot in the doctor's face as I go. As my hand closes around the wood grain of its handle, a massive hand closes around my leg. I'm lifted into the air, blood rushes to my head. All I see is a gray mass of necrotic torso and flailing arms. The gun is still in my hand. I squeeze the trigger twice. Bullets slam into the monstrosity's chest, but it does not loosen its grip. A hand, slim but strong, closes around my neck. I can't move my head, but aiming by instinct, I send 3 more shots up through the nest of flailing arms. I realize the .38 is empty a fraction of a second before the behemoth releases his grip on my leg, and I plummet headfirst towards the floor. Everything goes white. Sarah's crying. I can't feel anything, Papa. Cal, we have to get her out of the city. There's a cargo ship to Canada. We can make it if... Fire erupts in the distance. The bastards actually did it! I don't have time for this. I cut through the haze of pain and memory with the sheer force of will to see Winston standing over me, rifling through my pockets. He sees my eyes open, and there is panic in his for a moment, before my fist connects with the side of his head. He reels back, but keeps his feet and points the .38 at me as I raise to my feet. Sorry, Doc, out of bullets. Winston lets out a frustrated grunt, pulls the trigger a couple times just to make sure, then chucks the gun in my direction and runs towards the front entrance. I take it in the shoulder but barely register the pain as I chase after Winston. He's younger than I am, and I'm injured. He's also led the soft life of a researcher. I catch him by the examination table, tackling him against one of the metal slabs with the full force of my body. The doctor gives an audible moan, and the air leaves his body as he slumps forward. I ratchet a cuff around his right hand, then give him an elbow in the face to keep him docile before securing the second cuff around his left. Keys, I growl. In my right pocket, he wheezes. I take them and then track down my .38. It skidded to a halt under Clarence's grotesque patchwork body. I have to awkwardly reach through the forest of arms protruding from his chest to get it. I gag, but manage to keep the bile down. I load the gun and walk back over to Winston, who's staring blankly into space. Arm! He gives a start and blinks up at me, as if surprised I'm still there. In the freezer. It's a squat thing at the end of the row of examination tables. Inside, I find half a dozen plastic bags with half a dozen body parts. There are 3 bags with arms in them. Luckily, one of them has Margot Sullivan scrawled on the plastic. I close the lid without retrieving it. Phone. On my desk, over there. Winston nods his head towards a corner of the warehouse, blocked off by plastic sheeting. Halfway across the floor, it occurs to me that I am in a lot of pain. My head aches. My right arm is bleeding again, and I'm pretty sure I've refractured my left. There is also something wrong with my right hip, though I can't remember how I injured it. Behind the plastic sheeting, I find a meticulously tidied desk, some filing cabinets, and a chalkboard with some fairly gruesome diagrams, one of which I'm certain depicts Clarence. I pick up the phone and dial. A voice answers after a few rings. What? I found him. I need a car. 10. 20 minutes later, I shove Winstead into the back of Vasquez's black convertible. I slide him beside him with the .38 trained on his head. Margot Sullivan's arm is cradled in the crook of my left, twitching and grasping disconcertingly in its plastic packaging. Vasquez sits behind the wheel, and the bartender who'd cracked me in the skull is crammed into the passenger seat, his legs crumpled up into his chest. Vasquez, I say, big guy. You found him quick, Briggs, Vasquez said. Maybe you aren't a washed-up old drunk after all. Gotta clear a case every now and then if I want to keep drinking, right? I say. I need you to take me to my office. My client will be there in half an hour. That wasn't the deal. We're sending this asshole off the pier. I knew this was coming. Look, I don't care what you do with this creepy piece of trash. I launch into my sales pitch, but he's the only person who can reattach this for my client. I wave Margot's arm in his face. Vasquez recoils for a moment, then eyes Winston thoughtfully. You could sew arms back onto people, pendejo. The doctor gives a start. He'd been staring off into space, as if he couldn't quite fathom what had happened to him. Only the infected. For now, he says. My research with them is going to revolutionize medical science. Vasquez lets out a low chuckle. You won't be researching much from the bottom of the bay. He pauses. But I'd like to see an arm get reattached, so I suppose I'll let you live for a little longer. 11. We'd only just made it to my office when Margot Sullivan sashays in. Dark glasses, makeup, and gloves mask her condition. She's every inch the elegant socialite. She's flanked by a couple goons in black suits. You work fast, Mr. Briggs, she says, spotting her arm lying on my desk, writhing like a blind snake. Honestly, I thought you'd take a week to milk more money out of me. I shrug. Tips are always appreciated. Margot's black-lensed gaze shifts to Dr. Winston, still handcuffed and looking miserable in a ladder-back chair. Margot's lips contort into a feral snarl, and suddenly there's no question of what she is. You will suffer for what you have done, she says, and I wonder what happened to the lovesick girl who'd hired me less than 24 hours ago. Winston sputtered. He can fix it, I say. He's been using infected body parts in some disgusting experiments, but he's figured out how to reattach limbs. Margot's snarl melts into something more thoughtful. After a moment, she says, Scott, Larry, take him to the car, please. Vasquez shoots to his feet from his seat behind me. Not gonna happen, lady. That son of a whore killed one of my men. He's sleeping with the fishes tonight. Margot's black gaze turns to Vasquez. Who are you and why do you think you can talk to me like that? I'm the one making sure you stay fed and don't lose that pretty little mind of yours, he says. So you'll let the doctor here sew up your arm, and then you'll let me deal with him. Margot lets out a dry laugh. You're the boss Al always complained about? I always thought you'd be fatter. Brains are cheap, and my family has more money than you could hope to see in 100 lifetimes. Should you deny us service, we'll find another supplier. Dr. Winstead comes with us. A pistol appears in Vasquez's hand. He points it at the doctor. One way or another, this bastard dies today. Margot's thugs pull out guns the size of cannons and train them on Vasquez, who grins wildly. I should draw my own gun, find cover, pray for one more lucky break in this unending parade of shit that I've been marching in since Margot Sullivan sauntered into my office 12 hours ago. Maybe I just don't have the adrenaline left. But instead of fear, I feel only frustration and bone-aching weariness. Dad was a baker. I could be a baker. Probably too late in life for a career change, though. I put my head in my hands and let out a long sigh. Are we really fighting over who gets to punish this scumbag? Because he nearly harvested me for parts this morning, and frankly, I don't care who kills him. The snarl is back on Margot's face. Nobody is killing him, Mr. Briggs. If Dr. Winstead can reattach an infected arm, his research is much too valuable to waste. The doctor gives a relieved sigh. He'll continue his research under my father's supervision. She turns her snarl on the doctor, who'd fallen out of the chair and cowered behind it in the moment the guns were drawn. In a state-of-the-art lab with no windows and very heavy locks on the doors, he'll never see sunlight again. He moans. That work for you, Vasquez? I ask. Fuck you, Briggs, he says, then shoves his gun back into his holster and storms out of my office. I'm still gonna kill you one day, he calls from halfway down the hall. Margot's thugs holstered their own weapons, and I let out another heavy sigh. You have some charming friends, Mr. Briggs. Occupational hazard, Miss Sullivan, I say. Forgive me, but I'm exhausted and should probably see a doctor. Would you please pay me and get your mad scientist out of my office? Margot smiles and reaches into her purse, pulling out a roll of bills and sets it on my desk. This is for your services. She sets a second roll next to the first. This is for your expenses. A third, much larger roll hits the desk with an audible thud. And this is for your discretion, she says. Thank you, Mr. Briggs. She leaves without another word. One of the goons picks her writhing arm up off the desk, and another grabs Dr. Winstead by the collar and follow her out. I sit in silence for a few minutes, physically and emotionally spent. Eventually I reach into a drawer, dig under the bottle of whiskey, and a few case files I should have thrown out years ago, and find a cheap wooden picture frame. I set it on the desk and look at Sarah's smiling face for a while. Then I collect Margot Sullivan's money, and I go to the hospital. I am not gonna lie, guys, that was a very surreal experience. I just spent, 3 days recording and editing what would normally take me an afternoon. I've been in a lot of pain. I don't know if you could tell from my line reading, but I've been on a lot of strong pain meds, and that made this a lot harder to do than normal. I'm really grateful if you stuck with me to the end there. And I am frankly real grateful to be done with this particular story. I do love it. I am proud of this story. I do think it's one of the best in the book, but I am so sick of working on it, guys. It's been a very stressful few weeks for me. As I went into at the beginning, I'm not going to belabor it more, but I am really grateful to everyone who's said nice things and done nice things for me in the past few days, in the past few weeks at this point. I am physically, emotionally, spiritually spent, and I am also, frankly, pretty damn proud of myself that I just suffered one of the worst physical traumas of my life, and then read a story all about experiencing physical trauma. That wasn't intentional. Nobody planned that, but damn it, I got through it, and I think that makes me a tough or very stupid person for insisting that this came out on time. Either way, hey, there's just one more story left. It's called The End. I'm really proud of that one. It's the last story in the book for a reason, and it'll be coming out next Friday. So if you have enjoyed any of this journey, I hope you turn into the end. I hope you tell your friends about the show now as it's ending. And if you haven't yet, God damn it, buy the book. I normally don't care about that kind of thing, but I'm not working right now, and I need the money. It would be really helpful if you did. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful week. Goodbye.